Evan Thornton here from Podco New Media. I've corresponded with most of you this last weekend as we set up the LER blog site, and I want to say from the outset how much I'm enjoying working with you all as we co-create this new web resource. One of the aspects that appeals to me the most about the project we're working on is the way we can make a permanent resource out of something that's usually lost to the record. First, there's the useful way in which our memories can be collectively jogged, as Dr. Spooner put it, and then the way our discussions and debates can be easily revisited, all of which enhance the learning process. But also, even in our written work and research in the future, there are clear APA guidelines for how to cite web resources like the one we're making together, meaning remarks of class participants both on camera and in the blog can be referred to in future scholarship. With Google always hovering in the background, it's fair to say that not only are we recording as we go, we're archiving too. And it's the topic of web archives that brings me around to the work Dr. Hall does with his Globalization Studies program at the University of Lethbridge. I first got tuned in to what was going on in Lethbridge in the summer of 2005. My wife was taking a native studies course in Saskatoon, and our little summer rental didn't have a television. In the evenings, I would surf the net as my wife did her readings, and one evening I got an email from Mark Spooner telling me to check out this amazing website of a prof he knew in Alberta. I started looking over the archive of webcasts, saw many of the same names my wife was coming across in her readings, and called her over. I remember it was quite some time before I got my laptop back, and suddenly my Luddite spouse was a firm believer in the power of the internet. The next thing was she was demanding her own iPod to download Tony's podcasts, and after 20 years of marriage, we finally had a shared interest in something with cables and switches. There have been too many amazing interactions to detail in the 5 years of Dr. Hall's webcasts, but one of my favorite stories was the time he video conferenced with a classroom at the National University of Ireland. Evening classes can be awkward at any time, but for the Irish participants, making the 7 p.m. class in Lethbridge meant they dragged themselves into the lecture hall at 2 in the morning in Ireland. Using the power of webcasted video conferencing, Dr. Hall's roster of guest speakers has been incredible. As we scroll through them, I can assure you that each and every name is well worth a Google. The expertise he's brought into his classroom in a few short years is probably unparalleled in an undergraduate course anywhere in Canada. But to have some fun with tonight's lecture, I wanted to hear from the professor himself. So, with no further ado, here is a 2004 version of Dr. Hall giving us a bit of insight into his webcasting methodology.
So it may seem a little unorthodox, and I'm still sort of experimenting to find out how much information I can cover in a 3-hour section of time. You know, I overdo it. I overestimate. So I'm in the habit. I like to develop the curricula connecting to current events to some extent. Things that have happened just recently, things that you can read about in the paper, problems, issues that are facing us right now. And my methodology tends to be to start with something in the here and now and then try to flesh out the historical background. And of course, you know, there's a minimum of planning you can do, because if you're going to really be able to react and respond to the news of the day, you know, you want to have things backed up and ready to go, but there's a certain amount of spontaneity in it. So I'm going to emphasize 3 stories tonight and surf in and around these ideas.
So Dr. Hall, I'm going to risk putting you on the spot. Instead of the 3 items from the winter of 2004, I'm going to show you headlines from 3 news stories that are relatively current. and from 3 different sources. One from a Mohawk-run news blog from Ontario, one from the English service of Al Jazeera, and one from the Globe and Mail. I think there may be a common thread, but I'm keen to see you peel back the onion with a historian's perspective.